Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this special, very special meeting of the Planning Commission for Thursday, July 11th, 2024. We have specifically called this meeting to invite members of West Reading to join us to discuss a few issues. As it turns out, in the meantime, a major concern has come up, which is on the agenda. So online we have Commissioner Nelson Galea and Peter Rye.
What?
Let's see, Will.
No.
No, not yet? Okay, you might join us later. And then in the room with us, we have Christian, last name, Christopher Trotti, who has just joined the commission. Myself, I am Wayne Beeler. I'm chairman of the commission.
Oh, there's Will. Will, can you hear
here
us?
comes Will.
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
All right, this is great. Yeah, that's a great plus. And then I will have the members of West Reading introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Randy Miller. I'm the newly appointed borough manager of West Reading. I haven't just started on the 24th of June.
And I'm Phil Wirt. I am the Vice President of Borough Council and the Chairperson of the West Reading.
Thank you very much. And we also have Vanessa, is that correct?
Yes, Vanessa.
Vanessa is our city council representative from District 1. I just met her for the first time the other day. So we are getting to know each other. And also we have Donna Reed, the council of the city, president of city council with us today, who at one time when I first joined the commission was the representative to of city council to the planning commission.
And I also served on the planning commission. Before I was on.
And Donna also served on the planning commission. And online we have Jamie Baez, who is District 2.
Yes.
District 2 representative, who is our representative to city council. So we are extremely well represented today, which is good because we have some very interesting topics on the agenda. Okay. First order of business is to have a motion to amend the agenda as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Nelson. Second?
What question? What, Mr. Chairman? What are we amending?
We have made a few minor changes to the agenda as published in the advertisement. Basically including public comment sections
Okay.
to the agenda.
All right, and I'll second the motion.
Very good. Thank you, Will. Question on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Okay. Making sure I have my map. First item on the agenda is concerning the pickleball courts on Old Wyomissing Road. I will open this discussion by reading my prepared statements, which I have distributed, but I will read them into the record. The Planning Commission for the City of Reading has been working with the Borough of West Reading for about 2 months on a joint planning meeting to discuss items that affect both municipalities, especially the Penn Street corridor. By coincidence, The topic of parking along Old Wyomissing Road has become an important topic. Planning Commission has received the comments made during the two recent city council meetings. The topic was also discussed at the last city planning commission meeting. I will at first address some of the misconceptions that have been brought up by comments made to city council and by reporting by WNCTV. Pickleball courts are actually in the city of Reading. The land, however, is owned by the borough of West Reading. The dividing line between the two municipalities is Wyomissing Creek. Enforcement of the parking ordinances is therefore under the auspices of the Reading Police Department and the Reading Parking Authority. Parking complaints should not be referred first to the Reading Police Department, however, but to the Safety and Security Department of the Reading Parking Authority at 484-339-4979. A traffic study is not required for the addition of parking spaces to a street or a change from parallel parking to angled parking as long as the street meets PennDOT minimum width requirements. PennDOT only requires a parking study when a stop sign or traffic signal is installed or removed in the city at an intersection. The city of Reading has also instituted a policy that angled parking is preferred if the street is wide enough according to PennDOT regulations to accommodate the change. A number of recent changes include some areas along Robeson Street and North 12th Street. I should note that the area in question on North 12th Street was changed from a two-way to a one-way street to accommodate the change. The Public Works Department of the City of Reading has been working with Borough of West Reading and the Reading Parking Authority to effect the changes along Old Wyomissing Road since the fourth quarter of 2023. The Public Works Department had to give permission to the Reading Parking Authority to paint the lines for the angled parking. Although a number of comments have been made about the historic nature of the area is not part of a historic preservation zone like Hampton Heights. Residents of this area are more than welcome to apply for historic preservation zone status. Then such changes could be brought to both the Historical Architectural Review Board and the Planning Commission by the incorporated entity review. A number of residents mentioned moving the parking to the Reading Hospital School of Health Sciences or to the Thomas Ford Elementary School. Although such an idea may work, the Borough of West Reading would have to negotiate an agreement with either entity similar to the agreement that the Reading Stadium Commission had with Archer Technology. The possible solution, however, is converting the property at 801 Old Wyomissing Road to a parking lot. This property, once again, is in the city of Reading, but owned by the Borough of West Reading, is now a branch. The city of Reading will need to discuss this possibility with the Borough of West Reading and the County of Berks. I am assuming that the bridge over the Wyomissing Creek is owned by the county, not by the West Reading Borough. The City Planning Commission will need to review with the Borough of West Reading if they intend to reopen the bridge on Parkview Road and what signage might be required for the reopening of the bridge and the addition of parking. The City of Reading will also need to discuss with the Borough of West Reading a subdivision plan, since part of the parcel is in the Borough of Reading. The City of Reading, as a general policy, no longer allows parcels to span two municipalities. The City of Reading will also need to discuss the creation of a field house to replace the porta potties now located on the site. The Borough of West Reading should have filed a sewage planning module with the City of Reading as a courtesy because of the intensification of use. However, since this is part of the West Reading Park system, I'm sure the assumption by the West Reading Park Commission was that most people would use the existing facilities that are connected to public sewer. The Borough of West Reading and the City of Reading would also have to negotiate if the sewage waste will flow to the nearby Wyomissing Joint Municipal Authority Treatment Facility or if it would have to be tied into the city system that is buried under the old Lansing Road. The City of Reading Parks Commission should discuss the operating hours of the courts. As a general rule, City of Reading recreational facilities close at dusk. I believe the pickleball courts have lighting, however. The general policy of the City of Reading is that lighting should be dimmed after 10 p.m. in accordance with the National Dark Skies Initiative and turned off after an event. If the courts operate past 10 p.m., then the City of Reading and the Borough of West Reading need to come into an agreement concerning the lighting of the area. I must point out that this is not an issue that concerns any specific resident in Wyomissing nor the Borough of Wyomissing. This is strictly an issue that must be negotiated between the Borough of West Reading, the landowner, and the City of Reading, the municipality that encompasses the land in question. I also noticed a comment that residents of this area should be entitled to certain benefits because these residents supposedly pay more taxes. Let me first state that the tax situation in the City of Reading is extremely complicated because of its status as a municipality within an Act 1 school district. If you have not registered your property with Berks County as a primary residence, then you are not receiving the homestead exemption tax benefit provided by Act 1. As a part of an Act 1 school district, the majority of taxes have been transferred from property tax to earned income tax collected by Berks EIT, thereby giving older and disabled property owners a break on their tax. The amount they do pay can be reimbursed by the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue. I will now hear comments from the representatives from West Reading who are with us tonight, followed by a discussion in coordination with representatives from the Planning Commission in the City of Reading. I will then hear public comment. The general rules that apply to City Council meetings will apply here. Since this is a municipal meeting that was properly advertised according to the latest version of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act, the meeting can be recorded by individuals. This meeting, however, is being recorded by the City of Reading for its website and archives and will be accessible through its website. Specific attacks on individuals will not be tolerated, and such individuals will be removed from this meeting. And of course, I don't expect a lot of those comments to apply to the individuals here, but I've seen a lot of things get out of hand over the years because I used to cover municipal meetings for the Boyertown School District. Yeah, that's something I would never wish on anybody. So I'll turn it over to the borough manager and Mr. Wirt, if they might have any comments on this issue.
Thank you. We don't have any prepared comments. We didn't realize that that was going to be an opportunity for us to do that. I just did jot down some notes in regard to the statement you read. Like for example, 801 Old Wyomissing Road for parking lots. I know the borough would be opposed to discussing that at all, just to add parking for the parking lot. However, there may be better uses for that area as open space for the community as a whole. Instead of taking a green space and turning it into a parking lot, you're wasting that green space. One of the things that we are considering as going forward in the future is the idea all of us are dealing with MS4 and stormwater, and having locations for stormwater, and more importantly, the disposal of stormwater, or the treatment of stormwater before it reaches the creek, might be an opportunity in the future as well, for not just for West Reading, but also for the City of Reading, to be able to discharge stormwater through the facilities there that could be made as part of some grant that we could get in the future. Certainly working together with the City of Reading would provide opportunities for both West Reading and for the city to find grants out there that could benefit everyone. Any negotiations that we enter into, though, would also have to include the Pickleball Association, since they are the owners and operators of the courts there. Certainly it is open space land owned by the borough, but the Pickleball Association is the group that has done all the work invested all the time, invested all the money to be able to put those into place now. In regard to operation times, the borough is not opposed to setting times for its parks and its operations if there's an issue with the operation times. We just go over and turn the lights off or make sure that they get turned off at a specific time that would be beneficial to anybody in the area. And other than that, I think the borough as a whole is willing to sit down and talk to anybody that has concerns about that. I think the position has been pretty well stated by the borough that the parking is the purview of the city of Reading. We certainly believe that the angled parking is beneficial to everybody in the area. It certainly has increased the number of parking spaces, alleviated issues of parallel parking, and ideally, in conversations that the borough has had with the Pickleball Association, has recommended that they use those spaces instead of parking on the other side where the homes are located. So that's pretty much unless Phil wants to add anything to that.
You hit the nail on the head.
Very good. I'm, like I said, I'm so glad that you were here today. Here. I would turn it over to Ms. Campos at the moment if she might have any comments.
I think we're in, and I'm gonna think that, council president also chime in. We're both, in the works of kind of figuring out with West Reading, and we have a meeting coming up as well to, I think, figure out what the situation is, because we are hearing the concerns from the residents of the old, Wyomissing Road, and they're valid concerns, but we need to work together to find a way to resolve it. So we're looking forward to that. I think they're present here, their voices would be loud and clear with what their needs are.
Yeah, I think, you know, certainly there's been a lot of back and forth, I think, and that's why it's good you guys are here from West Reading to discuss this, because I think Vanessa and I, you know, emails we've been getting, I don't know about you, but occasionally I get confused as who's taking responsibility for what. And regarding a traffic study, West Reading, I just want to confirm this, West Reading did not do a traffic study, correct?
It's my understanding of the Pickleball Association.
So it was neither municipality did the traffic study.
No, so we didn't spend any money on anything.
Okay.
I'd like to chime in.
You there, Damien?
Yes, I just want to confirm, I think there was some email communication where it was confirmed that a traffic study was not needed because a stop sign or a traffic light wasn't being placed at the particular location. Just want to confirm that that's correct.
So.
And that came, I believe, from the city, but you're saying Pickleball Association had done some form of their own traffic study, not necessarily the city or West Reading
No,
traffic.
no municipally initiative by us.
Correct.
Initiated traffic study.
And that's one thing
Due
that's,
to what Councilman Biden just
Right.
said, because we know that the PennDOT's regulations regarding traffic study are tied to things like intersection stop.
because there could have been an informal one done or something that
Correct. Yeah.
was commissioned by someone else, but was not done
Yeah.
by the municipalities involved.
No.
I just want to get that clarification.
Correct.
So, and I understand the Pickleball Association put the money into it and I believe paid for the contracting of painting of lines and all that sort of thing. And that obviously had to have been done through the okay of the city of Reading. So I wanted to make it clear who's responsible for what, because we appreciate that you're here. It is a strange situation in terms of the land ownership and then the borough's involvement and then the Pickleball Association paying for the improvements. You have a sort of triad there of different entities. And so for us to get to the bottom of this and to mitigate the situation, we really need to know who's responsible for what legally as well as financially, but legally is the bottom line. And I see Michelle Mayfield's on her sheet. Michelle, am I speaking correctly on that?
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, we have to do some additional research. We provided this as an opportunity for anybody to comment since the groups were together. But yes, we just want to make sure that everybody's legally protected and things are conducted, performed legally.
Thank you. I just want to be sure who's in charge of what and who's been responsible for what, and that will help us move forward. Instead of us guessing at city council meetings or something.
Yeah, I've been observing this from the sidelines as a solicitor to the planning commission, and I have not been directly involved, but any assistance that we can provide the city, we're always here to help.
Yes, I have one final question for planning commission. This was a different land use, but that land use was then determined by West Reading because it's within your borough, even though it's not owned by the city.
Well, it's not actually a change in land use
Yeah, I
because
can-
it's still recreation.
I can.
Now, they would have changed it from recreational to housing or recreational to something else like expanding the Wyomissing authority into that area. That would have been different.
I just wanted to get that clear so everyone knows what's going on. Okay.
I can
Yeah.
comment a little bit more on the
Yeah,
land
I don't
use.
know.
So in regards to land use and zoning, it's always been a park. And so just the restriping of lines, changing it from a tennis court to a pickleball court or changing the basketball court to a tennis court, that doesn't change the use. Because it would be very difficult for us to chase the popularity of different recreational activities. You know, for the longest time, it was always basketball. You go in the summer to City Park, you have blacktop going on. And sometimes year by year that ebbs and flows. So it's the popularity of pickleball doesn't constitute a change of use. It's still a recreational park facility. So because it's not a change of use, that also would not trigger a traffic study. Because who's to say that next year pickleball dies out? So that's not something that is really feasible to kind of track and regulate. So just a little clarification on the use. It's technically by zoning standards, not a change of use.
So just to clarify, right, and seems like a lot of the responsibilities of the pickleball association, the ones that, you know, initially did this work, paid for it. So who would West Reading and oversee? Because there's concerns about how the lines were really done, like, if they're the ones that did all of this, they're not here, so would we rely on West Reading and then you would bring them to this conversation as well, because they shouldn't be doing anything on their own, they have to kind of, but we're all working together.
The streets are all ours. Yes. So
I would assume that there is.
Even though they-
Specification of how, what angle they need to be lined at, how long each individual stall line needs to be.
Yeah.
So those standards likely exist in black and white somewhere, and that whoever contractor will absolutely have to follow those specifications.
Public Works would also oversee that.
Yeah, Public Works would oversee it, and generally because of the street lining that's happening throughout the rest of the city of Reading. In fact, my block on 900 block of the street's being done tomorrow. The parking authority is actually drawing those lines, and it's my understanding that the parking authority needs to do that.
Yeah, so that, the whole street line, even though they pay for it, falls on our shoulders, Public Works. So we'll have to get more.
So there's another layer here that we probably need to discuss with Public Works. Sorry to say, Tim's not here today. Tim Frawley is our representative to the planning.
Right.
A very astute individual who knows his stuff from being in the private sector and here in the public sector.
I do. Do you need to?
Yeah. Okay, I will.
Who do you need me to send it to?
Christian right now, if he has any questions.
Well.
Oh, to this, okay.
You have the schedule for like the receiving of the whole city, like, are they going to do it in waves?
Oh, that is a very, very complicated schedule that's handled by Public Works.
And like, as far as, being able to put, comments in there, like, as far as, adding bike lanes and stuff like that, and what is there a comment period for?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, luckily Donna's here. Yeah.
People don't usually say that.
The city right now is in negotiations with Simone.
Simone Collins.
Simone Collins.
About bike lanes in downtown.
Oh, the active transportation plan.
Yeah, there we go. That type of stuff would be an extension of that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the many plans that we have that we're working on.
So that is gonna be on future agenda. Okay. I do seem to notice that we tend to table a lot of stuff.
But a lot of.
It's a whole schedule, Hayden. I'm sure Wayne, if you requested, it can be provided to you.
If I asked, I just never asked.
Yeah, that is like, that's supposed to be part of the advocacy work that I'm planning, like, long term.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because right now, what did they just finish? They just finished, 1000 block of North Fifth Street and the 700 block of Center Avenue. And I think they're gonna have to go down to Schuylkill Avenue soon because PennDOT's replacing that bridge down there. So, yeah, there's a lot of,
I do remember
there's a lot of work going
saying
on.
that couple crucial bridges were going to be knocked out and replaced. I'm of course wondering if it's possible.
And I think we will have to get it later.
That's an aspect that we would not like to work on.
You mean this downtown plan?
Yes.
Okay.
That aspect, we have a whole section that addresses that, so it is part of the area that is going to be comprehensively addressed. Yeah.
Peter, do you have any comments?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, very good. Well,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I appreciate West Reading meeting with us, and I look forward to all the discussion topics. I'm glad, Mr. Chairman, you brought up the bridge on Parkview, because I was going to raise that. First of all, does anyone know, or can we verify the county's ownership of it? From what we understand, usually a bridge that spans more than one municipality is owned by the county, but we learned a few years ago that the bridge on Museum Road over the Wyomissing Creek is not owned by the county. Does anyone know?
Do you mean the pedestrian bridge? Yeah, we own that bridge. The county constructed the bridge. And when the bridge needed to be rehabilitated, probably 15 plus years ago, we thought the county was going to rehabilitate it. And they said, no, we just built these bridges back in the 50s. They're yours now. And so you get one over over by the sewer authority, and Reading gets the one over by the museum. So happy birthday. So we own the pedestrian bridge there. We obviously, took out the old bridge. It needed to be completely rebuilt. The demolition costs and the rebuilding costs were very, very, very high. So we were able to negotiate an agreement with UGI. So currently right now, that bridge houses a very large natural gas main underneath it. because they wanted to originally directionally drill underneath the Wyomissing Creek in order to build a new main. Now, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, that bridge is relatively new. I think it may have been suggested in terms of comments here about potentially rebuilding that. I would venture to guess that's a very remote possibility.
And that's actually a very, that was actually one of the things that I think we were kind of looking at for a few years. So, great, very good. Anything else, Will?
Yeah, I heard most of that, but there's been interference off and on. And is it a remote possibility of reopening the bridge fully? Is that part of what I heard, I think?
I'd say not a possibility.
Okay, because the reason I ask is not only because of the traffic in regard to the park usage, but I always think, you know, more pathways are best for first response purposes. So given that it's right on the boundary and your fire station is nearby, I think it'd be mutually beneficial if the bridge could be reopened. So I don't know if it's something maybe could be a topic for a follow-up discussion. And like I said, I think it would be beneficial.
Yeah, I can tell you, we have absolutely no intention of rebuilding that bridge.
Okay.
Do you have anything else on?
Okay.
Yeah, well, if he gets back to us. We'll him, Jerome, do you have anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we go across the room because I think this will be beneficial to the community who has joined us to kind of get an idea of what we normally do on the planning commission. This is how I normally run a meeting. So we'll turn it over to public comment, and then you amongst yourselves can decide who goes first.
Should I do it from here, sit there? First of all, thank you for taking me. Neil Hoiber, and I live on Old Wyomissing Road. Okay. I lived there for 24 years. First of all, let me just say that I would like to thank you for both taking the time today to discuss it with us. Some of the things, I know we didn't do the survey, but part of the survey, when they do surveys, it says in guidelines that they should speak to everybody that's involved that has a share stake in doing a survey. So if you did do a survey, then they think we should be part of the stakeholders that did part of the survey. That said, when you talked earlier about Thomas Ford School and the health science, we're not asking you to take their property. We're talking about the same Old Wyomissing Road that's up there, where there is no houses from that part on. You can put the angle parking up there rather than putting it in front of residential areas. That's all we're saying. So it would have been the same thing, same street, same width.
But with more accesses.
And let me just tell you, one of the reasons why. Because our end of Old Wyomissing Road has all the traffic of the trucks coming up and down, between the trucks and also the tow truck that comes up and down all the time. The city, part of the city that they contract with to do that part for the tow truck. With that said, they said in that they added 20 more parking spaces by angling parking spaces. You could easily have put in 30 or 40 parking spaces up between the Thomas Ford School and the health and science. And if they would have put parallel parking on that street and made it markings for that side of the street, but let me just tell you, I did some statistics of what it takes in order to play pickleball. And what I'm going to say is typical pro pickleball players game lasts about 45 minutes on the average 20 minutes if they're playing just fun playing. So there's 10 courts with a capacity that holds 40 players an hour, times 12 hours, which is 480 cars in a 12-hour period that could be used in those spaces. Which even if they just drive in separate cars, each person takes their own cars, it's an hour game, that's 40 spaces, times 12 hours is 480 cars in a 12-hour period. But they made 78 spaces times 12 is 936 spaces in that space by making 78 spaces. So an hour-long space times 12 hours that the pickleball court's open is 936 spaces in a day's time. That's probably more space and usage than Berkshire Mall is getting at this point. So with that said, with the additional 20 spaces by placing it at angle spaces, if you take those 20 spaces away, which gave you 58 spaces that would have been there by parallel parking at an hour each space, that would have taken you, that would accommodate enough for all the pickleball spaces plus 260 cars in a daily event. So we're talking, they added that. The reason they did that was to accommodate both the pickleball courts and the basketball courts, which is a 2.5-month period. So now you have 78 spaces that they're going to need to use 30 of them. And I'm saying if they use it 24 hours a day, they might use 45 spaces, that 24-hour spaces. So now you have all those extra parking spaces with no use for it for the whole time. So adding those spaces all angled, it's a waste of your money and a waste of our view because they don't need all those spaces. If you average it out, they only need like 24 spaces, which is easy to put up there, made angle parking, made our side of the street permanent parking where we have residential parking. And you guys, when you did it, you didn't consider putting maybe, what they said that we complained about parking. I don't think you ever had complaints about from West Reading, our people, West Reading saying that we don't have any parking spaces. We complained that they parked in front of our parking spots where we want to go into our garages. They parked at the fire hydrants. They parked at the stop signs. They don't stop when they down the road. I asked Tim Hall to put stop gaps in at the stop signs. He says they don't do that in the city unless it is a crosswalk. Well, I can point out all over the city where there's a stop sign and a stop gap sign to help slow down the traffic. Nobody's following the sign, speed limit of 25 miles an hour. Trucks are going down 30, 40 miles an hour down there, not stopping at the stop signs. Inhibits our safety. Not only that, now you move that middle line closer to our side and the trucks don't care. When they make that curve, because that's where the street they use the most use of, is from Parkside South down to the Russell Plywood. They're having them make that huge turn. They're going all the way over to almost where the parking lights are in order to get around the corner now. So where the parking lights are. And if you look at the parking spaces, you have parking spaces at an angle beyond even the stop sign. Where the stop sign is, there's 2 parking spaces right at the stop sign at an angle. So how can somebody even see the stop sign if a truck's parked there, like a 4-wheel drive truck even, they're going to go right through that because they can't even see the sign because there's 2 angled parking spaces there. Then there's a space in front of where old Limas and Lilac meet. There's a big angled space there where there's no parking in it. So they're still parking, and I don't know why they didn't either put parallel parking in that spot, or they didn't say stop the angle parking, left the whole blank area with no parking, with nothing's there. So people still side parking in there. Sometimes they're double parking in that spot. So it even makes it harder to, when the road's this much narrower, because I measured everything. So yes, according to the plan, it has the length that it needs. There's 12 feet of space to drive up and down on each side of the road. So legally by law, according to the parking authorities laws, it's right. But it's not right for when the trucks are coming down. There's no trucks going the opposite way. If you go from Parkside North up to where the road goes on diagonal, trucks don't use that. So why are you parking up there where trucks aren't using that space? That's all we're saying. You can put parking spaces in, put lines in, because if people learn how to park, you get a lot more spaces in parallel parking than you were when you didn't have the spaces. And in order to do that, I think residentials, we have a right to have at least parking in our spots. We have no place to park. Sometimes I'm parking almost 2 blocks away when I'm coming home from work. I park 4 or 5 blocks away. But you're in the city and you're not across.
But I think you have very succinctly stated so the points that Public Works needs to take a look at.
So if I heard correctly, he's proposing, putting the parking spots up here where, trails come together?
No, the elementary school is no longer open. From Kent First.
Actually, that elementary school is.
It's a block and a half, and the reason, I don't know why, when we hear pickleball people come and say they're parking down on the street, which is on. They're like, oh my God, you realize how far we have to park to play pickleball. That's what they're saying.
run up
Yeah. You do survey, you have to walk, walking distances where they should park. So I think for the 3 months,
The standard, yeah, the standard in the city of Reading is that it should be 300 feet from where you park to your desk.
Well, that's with.
And that would be within
apartments and
300.
Residential.
It's not in parking, that's not for parks though.
No, that's for residential.
Right.
No, so for our current parking standards, if you're putting in a new use and whether it's residential or commercial, currently, it doesn't matter the use. If you're putting something in that has a parking requirement, if you can't accommodate all the parking on your lot, you may have off-site parking no more than 300 feet away. So that obviously wouldn't necessarily come into effect right now because this is an existing use. This would be like if this is brand new land and they're just proposing a park right now.
So one of the things you said is that it's a public park. Well, at this point, is it really a public park? Because you have to sign up. You can't just go and play pickleball courts. You have to sign up with them.
You can. You absolutely can.
You have to sign up and say to get the spots.
Now, we have a written agreement with the Pickleball Association in black and white, where we told them that they cannot have complete control of the pickleball courts, which they do not. So if they're telling you that, then they're in violation of the agreement that they have.
And the other thing is, you're letting West Reading dictate our block or the area of the space, not our block, but the parking space. But if we want to go, which is right across the street, join the West Reading pool, we have to have somebody sponsor us in order to join the West
He
Reading
didn't
pool.
dictate anything. He didn't dictate anything at all. The Pickleball Association came to us asking whether or not there was a way out parking. And so we went to the city of Reading to see whether that's a possibility. There was absolutely no dictating of anything.
When I spoke to Tim told me that West Reading gave him the proposal and he signed off on it, so.
So that is the city's responsibility.
And also.
I don't want to couch it. It's a city, it's us.
Okay, so when you did that, and I called all over, I called West Reading, I called Reading, back and forth, when they were starting to draw the lines. They told me I had to call city, parking authority, because those are the ones that do the lines. I called the city parking authority. They said they knew nothing about it, nothing at all. They had no idea. They said to me, we're too busy doing 4th Street and all those other streets with lining and servicing those lines right now, that we have no idea of anything that's going on. So how can you say it's the parking authority's responsibility to paint those lines when they didn't even know that the lines were going in?
Well, obviously, this was a general contractor contracted by the Pickleball Association and the city, for whatever reason, and Vanessa and I need to look into this, city signed off on this. So I don't want West Reading bearing the responsibility of something that the city signed off. Tim signed off on it. Tim is a representative of the city. The city is ultimately responsible. So I don't want them blamed for something that happened on our watch. Vanessa and I were caught by surprise. I don't think you knew about it. I didn't know about it. We know now, and that's why we're trying to facilitate something. We're working with them. our attorneys. We take this very seriously. Vanessa.
No, when I met with Tim, Paul, and Kyle, Director of Public Works, we kind of gave a little bit of a breakdown, but I know when this was occurring, the conversation and the plans, I believe Tim mentioned it was with the former Borough, West Reading Borough Manager. And now because there's a change, like there was a disconnect, and he didn't understand like what happened there, but we are trying to look into it to the best of our ability. Because like, as you're explaining it, it does seem confusing, but I do agree with Council President, it is our responsibility to rectify it to the best that we can.
One more thing I'll discuss here. It's the porta potties. EPA standard for porta potties is that you have to have, they're not supposed to be on, even on park-like settings for more than event space use. If they are, they have to have a waiver by this, either West Reading or Reading, to prove that they're going to be permanent, a permanent fixture. So, with that said, and if they're thinking they're getting 500, 600 parking spaces use out of it on a daily basis, 2 porta potties aren't the standard by EPA standards. So that means you're getting at least 100 to 200 people playing pickleball in the daily time period, which means they're supposed to be cleaned 3 times a day, according to EPA standards, with a peroxide cleanser, and everything like that. They're supposed to be facaded so you don't see them. I can sit on my front porch and see people going in and out of porta potties. So they should have been in a spot when I talked to West Reading, I don't know who I talked to, and I said to them, why did you put the porta potties right there where everybody can see them, when you have the space between the West Reading pool and the back of the pickleball courts, which is empty space. There's no houses, nobody would see them. He said to me, well, the ground's not level back there. How could you not make the ground level? You put a cement slab up to put the pickleball court, the porta potties on right next to the pickleball court. So why couldn't you accommodate the backside where nobody in the front side would have to see it? There's no houses back there. Nobody has to see porta potties, so they're living in their house.
I talked to Council President Lorna Weaver. He said he would do his best to get that. It was moved to level out in another area. I don't know what the status of that is. But I take him at his word. He has been very.
I can't tell you it's gonna happen tomorrow.
But I take him at his word.
And just saying that, is it going to be a permanent fixture then? Because according to EPA standards, it can't be unless it's a waiver. And if it is, 2 porta potties aren't going to accommodate what you're saying that pickleball courts are going to accommodate.
I don't think it's going to be a permanent structure. That's porta potties.
Well, then it has to come out in the wintertime. So every either seasonal. So it means from October to February, there should be no porta potty.
I understand that completely. But there may be opportunities in the future to look at other possibilities other than porta potties. If we're looking to have a community park, then the possibility exists that maybe community facilities.
But you have West Reading where you have there. You just can't walk that far to the bathrooms you have underneath the pavilion. You have bathrooms there, right?
There are, yeah.
Yeah.
So why can't they put a bridge and just walk to the bathroom?
You bring up a good point, and the borough is looking at grant monies to put the pedestrian bridge back in. So that possibility does exist in the future that could occur. I can tell you straight out though, I don't know that I'm going to be able to meet your timeline for that. I can say that the borough will investigate that, we will pursue grant monies for that, and in the future that possibly does exist.
Why does it take grant money when the pickleball association is paying for everything? Why can't they pay for that too?
Oh, the bridge.
Well, the bridge over Vermont border takes.
But they paid for the parking, which is parking lines, which has been something that the city of Reading should have paid for. Yeah.
No, but as I said, that bridge would need to be permitted by DEP, and that takes about 6 years.
And just as a point of correction, also the porta potties are also overseen by DEP as well, not EPA.
So, Jerome is our consultant.
I'm quoting right, but those are the standards.
The DEP would have the defined requirements and regulations as part of the permit process. when they are required to be emptied and maintained. So yeah, those are all specified. So either, I would assume that Public Works would also have access to those permits.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Renee Gio. I live on Old Wyomissing. I went to take care of my mom somewhere else. When we first moved in, I was amazed at how wonderful it looks there and all the greenery and everything. And I came back from being gone a couple days and all of a sudden there's something very different. One of the first questions I would ask, has everyone seen what our street is? I guess my thoughts are it doesn't match the standard that I've seen previously on jobs. It honestly, the angled parking is longer than I typically seen them to be. And they tried to get rid of the middle line, but they're trying to like, what are they using to try to get it off?
A grinder.
A grinder, so there's two middle lines. So it really looks bad. I honestly, I'm not fighting for the moon because I just want a street that looks decent and looks good. And I know, I'll be honest, I don't think you're gonna get rid of the angle parking. I know some people think that'll happen. I don't necessarily think that unless you made a parking lot somewhere. I do think that there should be a standard for a road and there should be like a line that's still painted there and two lines. And that the angle parking shouldn't, it's like really long. If it was shorter, it would be easier to drive. We do have big trucks that are going there all the time. So I basically feel like the integrity isn't maintained as to standards I've seen previously all over this area. And you can tell that somebody did it that doesn't usually do it. So that's my biggest concern is that I want to have a nice looking street. And I know it may not be exactly the way it was before, but I want it to be a nice looking street. We also have parking spots that are right next to the stop sign. I don't think that's legal.
The requirement is 15.
Yeah, I just, the way it doesn't look right. And like I said, the angle parking's too long. And the two middle lines, which I know I've mentioned it only once, but my thoughts are if that it could somehow be fixed, so it's professionally done. I know that a lot of the people here, one of their worries is that they're on the side of the street that's where the houses are, and they end up not having parking because of the pickleball players, even with the added parking. I don't know if there's any ways to handle that. Not whether it would be it's not even as far down as my road, because I'm near the end of it. I don't know if there's a way to make it where it's like resident parking, or if there's a way to have signs posted that basically say you need to use the angled parking. So I'm not asking for extreme things, but I am asking if people would look at it.
That sounds like something, yeah, so I haven't been down on Old Wyomissing Road, but when they repaved and restriped 4th Street by the Bloom Apartments, the old WEU, that looked horrendous. And someone notified Public Works that it looked like there was double line, like they did the lining wrong and stuff, and then they went back and fixed it. So that sounds like something that Public Works needs to probably go and verify that it was done to standard. Because it sounds like they added parking where they weren't supposed to. And if the lines are too long, then yeah, then the trucks don't have room. I will say though that if you have the roadway widths at a minimum standard, granted that they meet the standard, it should, in theory, work as a traffic calming measure. So it should be, that's why I said in theory. In theory, it should be forcing these trucks to slow down. I can let you know, they don't even slow down within city limits or within like here. So there's only so much that we can control.
Right.
And so what we can control is looking at how it was designed or how it was actually done and making sure that it was done according to what was approved.
I would appreciate. Thank you.
Look into it. And also, is there still residential permit parking on 4th Street?
South Fourth,
Yeah, South Shore. So there,
because those are, but that's because that's metered parking all along that street.
Ah.
And so then they have residential permits that then you don't have to feed the meter. I believe that's how that one works.
but we can definitely look into your suggestions. With that, I'll allow, one more person.
So again, I mean, my name is Kirk Dawson, I'm on Old Wyomissing Road also. Just to give you a heads up that this is what the stop sign looks like.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Well,
and they park there, and if it's a
That's
truck,
done on that.
I mean, it's literally right on Stradley. I know during one of the conversations, someone was also talking about they'll only do the traffic studies if they're putting in a stop sign or something like that. Our big issue is we have a stop sign at the corner of Lilac Lane and Old Wyomissing Road. We just need it enforced. And I'm thinking maybe you need to do a traffic study of the site to see the traffic flow on the street. You know, it's one thing for us to stand here and say how bad it is, but you have to see it or monitor or whatever, you'll understand the trucks and the cars and so forth. I had a couple questions for you that I'm not understanding. Again, I've lived in the area for 24 years. So this whole West Reading area thing just eluded me. Who owns what, who does, you know, years ago, they increased our sewage lines. They brought out a company to spray the grass stuff. The company left the truck there. Kids started vandalizing. Neil called West Reading and they said, that's not our area, you have to call Reading. I'm like, okay, sorry, we thought that was West Reading Park. Now, what your paper is telling me is that even though the river, the creek is used as a dividing line, West Reading technically owns that line, the grassy lot from Museum Road over to the sewage treatment plant. Is that correct?
Borough owned, okay, it's not, it's within the city.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So even though
I'm just trying to protect
ours, it's your land, but you wouldn't take responsibility.
We can't,
Even though you own
For that issue.
yeah,
You can't take responsibility for that issue.
It's a street issue.
Yes.
That.
Yeah.
I agree on the street, but again, if there's vandalism in that area, it's still running, even though it's.
Yeah,
That's why we
Well,
don't understand.
the problem there is also, there are three different sewage lines running through there. There's a city of Wyoming sewage line running through there, there's a Wyomissing Joint Authority sewage line running through there, and there's also a Conroe Township line running through there. So we would need to talk to Public Works as to who owned what.
Well, again, I mean, I'm glad that you supplied us with a phone number now, as far as who to call if there's an issue.
They are very helpful, because when people park in
We
the,
have no idea, we're making phone calls between boroughs, between whatever.
yeah.
And nobody seems to know.
No, they don't.
No, they're
No,
open
they don't. They're open 24/7.
like if someone.
Yes, they're enforcement, they're security enforcement.
West Reading could not do anything, please.
Recently,
Reading,
we were told differently.
that we have no jurisdiction.
We were told that the West Reading Police were traveling our street because they had received a call from a pickleball. But they
So the city of Reading can ask for assistance,
Yes.
and have backup and say, hey,
Mutual aid.
we claim for you, we do it, we do it. And, you know, say something, you know, dispatch would dispatch to Reading, and Reading would say, call West Reading real quick, see if they can get there first. You know, so a West Reading cop might call in first, but only after given permission, and coming to the Reading to respond to, an area within their jurisdiction. And that's not just this specific situation, that's literally everywhere in the Commonwealth. It just so happens we've got one municipality that owns land in another municipality. So we as landowners have to follow the same rules as every other landowner within the city boundaries. We have to follow the zoning, we have to follow the sewer requirements, we have to follow the parking requirements, everything, just like any other landowner. We don't get special permission or rights just because we're a municipal entity that happens to own land in the city of Reading. So to Don's point earlier.
Yeah, and it's analogous to the fire tower, which the city of Reading owns the land, but is in Lower Alces Township. And all the towers and everything, the cell towers had to be updated by Lower Alces. Same with 101 Lake, owned by the city / Rolla, but under the jurisdiction of 101 Township. Because, so it happens a lot. Here, the confusing thing is because everything is like this, everything's next to each other. In those cases, they're separate. So I understand your frustration. Okay.
So the last thing I really wanted to say was that this whole thing kind of is snowball. We kept hearing from people, well, you have to understand this has been in the works for a year and a half. You know, the whole parking changed or whatever. And my whole thing was that we woke up one morning to people already out there setting up the lines. The guy who did it parked out front of my house, etc. This was in the works for a year and a half. If somebody would have just talked to the residents, we wouldn't be standing here today.
And I can guarantee you,
The
Vanessa and I
communication in
know.
this whole fiasco
Well,
has just been,
it's a point that the planning commission has tried to come across with the public works a number of times. However, public works has the excuse that if it doesn't meet certain regulations, it doesn't have to come to the planning commission, because then it would be held up for about another 90 days.
well, I'm not saying
And
the
that's-
residents, you would have had the ability to change anything.
Yeah,
A, we would have been aware of it, and B, you would have gotten our input back then.
Correct.
correct.
And it was also something that didn't need an okay from city council, it didn't come before us, hence when Vanessa and council started.
Okay, that's what, so the word that we were so using is that everybody has been the line side on this.
And Jerome, Simon, Emily, and the rest of the zoning and planning commission are actually basically rewriting the zoning ordinances and subdivision land development ordinance to make sure that there is actually ability for more public input. We have actually heard from the county of Berks that we are actually violating Pennsylvania code because of our adaptive reuse. However, Mr. Hunter hit it right on the head when he said that yeah, the city of Reading is unique in that we have the MS4 federal requirements that we have to follow, and we are under a mandate from the Pennsylvania DEP, so that when there is a change of use, we have to have sewer modules for a change of use that needs to prove that we have enough sewage flow in the city of Reading. And these are the type of things that we are working, that we are working on. It's not going to happen overnight, but these are the type of things that we are working on. And as I mentioned, you would think, you know, the benefit of the city for the city that we're making these changes, but yet we get pushback from the county, and we get pushback from other places that we kind of have to. We have to stand our ground, and you're standing your ground, and you have been kind enough to come forward.
Well, we appreciate you.
I would just wanted to say, we want to hear from everyone, but we also do have other things on our agenda. So if anyone else wants to speak, if you could just keep it concise, yeah.
Yep, just,
Real quick and
we'll do like
concise.
city council. You want 3 minutes?
And I just wanted to make a comment. I don't know where the talk about parking lot at 801 came from. We never requested that, and certainly wouldn't want it. Or a field house. Those are the things that we even talked about. And as far as pickleball association telling their members to not park on the residential side, they certainly are not paying attention to the association. Because they are parking right up to the driveways, blocking fire hydrants. You know, so that they can save a half a block of walking when they're going to get exercise. You know, but I would like to thank John and Vanessa for being so helpful, trying this.
And we will talk to Public Works again, yellow lines.
I just want to say, yes, they are parking in our driveways, they're throwing their trash out, so we gotta take the trash, and take it right over and put it in the pickleball court there. Some of them are very rude, they're entitled and they're privileged. And we're the taxpayer people there, and if it was such a good idea, put it in your neighborhood then. From 7:30 to 10 o'clock at night. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch, please.
Your next question?
The past one said, I'm going to share all I have like that. And I live on Long Island, about the annual parking, I know in theory, it's, well, first of all, it is the town requirement or something like that. And there is the theory of the narrowing lines is gonna make the traffic slow down, and as I said, in our city, it did make it slow down. And I think it would be really helpful for you all and whoever is involved in the planning to come see for yourself that it is really not, the angle parking has made things worse for us. And as Kirk alluded to, wherever he went to, it's, I think by this time, we're kind of overthinking things. We were frustrated because people were trying to tell us, well, we're going to traffic study and kind of justify when we woke up. So there was one might have been useful, and an impact study with the neighbors that would have been useful too, to find out, you know, what we thought about maybe putting in the pickleball court, because they turned 4 unused tennis courts into 10 pickleball courts, which would to attract hundreds of new players and get them on. But in the end, it's really not so much about the parking, because we've been living with it for decades, many decades, at least 20 years. We've lived with it, basketball, people, we just don't want those lines. If things were back the way that they were before with the central line, we wouldn't have to worry about the trucks now driving down the center, or maybe sideswiping our cars. And the division that this has caused in the community is a really big visible thing, because we didn't have all this. You know, 3-4 weeks ago, there was none of this. We weren't before you, there was a Facebook fight, and now we have a little bit of this passive aggressive stuff going on, maybe vandalism in our neighborhood. If things were the way that they were before the scene of drama, you never would have heard from us. Just like the employment, the lines, 3 or 4 feet, and all the traffic. Parking, so I'm sorry, that was more than I thought.
Okay.
You're entitled to put it on a walk. You're going to really 103 brother around on a walk for it.
Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, if we did point out to me, there are 4 reports, there are reservations.
Yeah, there's $40 for 90 minutes.
They are getting 3 hours.
Oh, but you said it, oh.
I said they had portion.
Oh, you said portion earlier.
Oh, and there's one more thing. I don't think the existing restaurant facilities are anywhere within the conditions of the pickleball courts. They need to have the porta potties, because other than that, it's the widest weekend, so.
Well,
Been there, Dan.
we're, thank you everyone for coming in. I think, I really think that Vanessa and Doc have received quite a bit of interesting feedback from you, and we were able to get more detail than would have been available to city councils, especially since we have representatives from West Reading. So thank you very much.
Spend 10 minutes there. You can sit on my porch and have a clear view.
No problem, I'll.
Life is totally changed.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Transfer the land to the other.
We can make that one.
Very, very difficult. Extremely difficult.
Okay. So next on the agenda.
I'm not sure that we take ownership for what is our, what we have signed off on. We want to, you can give me your stuff.
And there are things that we have responsibility for.
Sure, absolutely. So that's why we can work on this.
A little bit longer than I wanted to take on this subject, but I think, it was a positive discussion. Next, we will, talk about the, downtown strategic plan, and, Simon is the one working on this one, unless you would like me to.
From what I have from the end, please feel free also to add something in.
Sure. We, over the past 2 or 3 years, we've been going through our plans of record. Some have been adopted, some have not. And you've probably developed recent plans as well. And we just thought it'd be a good idea to bring West Reading together with the city of Reading to discuss some of these open projects and where we're going at in the future in terms of planning, zoning, community development type of issues. The first thing that we have on here is we have a downtown strategic plan that was developed in 2022, was finalized in 2023, and has been sitting for some time. It is a very detailed plan on the city of Reading's plan for downtown redevelopment, revitalization, economic development. It is basically a comprehensive plan for just the downtown core, and provides a great deal of information. And I believe Simon has forwarded that to you for review and consideration. Simon is attempting to resurrect that with the cities. He's spent the last 2 meetings with our planning commission in discussing the contents of it and to getting more input. But we thought that West Reading Borough would be almost like a partnership involved with this type of project. I know you forwarded it to them.
I shared documents, but to add on,
Those copies.
that's a copy, yes. And
That's just one big fat copy.
that's just.
It is a detailed document.
Yeah, we have around 106 pages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is the summary, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the implementation plan is like 52 pages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please feel free to add in.
So one of the things that we noticed is that in this downtown plan, I believe it mentions somewhere that we should be getting in contact with West Reading and developing a plan for the development of both sides of the river.
Shared gateway.
Yeah, the shared gateway. And one of the things that I've been trying to get away from in the 20 years I've been here is this thing about you're on that side of the river, we're on this side of the river. On the next thing about collaborative parking, I'll talk about some of the ideas that I have about that. But and then you also in your latest strategic plan, I think on page 7, I think it is, talks about collaboration with us. And this is what brought this meeting about, because we felt this would be a good time to pull our resources together.
So I have a lot to say.
Go for it.
First, I think adopt is the plan to have the city officially adopt this as an economic development program?
We would have to fine tune in terms of it's most of the plan was developed prior to prior to 2023, and the draft was 2022. So in lieu of going through it line item by line item and trying to make adjustments, I think it can be pointed out in the initial narrative that it was based upon or predicated upon on those years. But we would like to see the plan be resurrected in a way, because we do plan on doing a comprehensive plan for the entire city, and it would be nice to have a document that is adopted or has been endorsed by the city.
Right, yeah. Like, you know, your comprehensive plan versus, and I refer to it as an economic roadmap. So like our study there, the borough has officially adopted it as the wishes of council to go in this direction. So the reason I say that is, you said you've been here for 20 years, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. In the last 20 years, I don't know how many plans have come out from consultants to look at what collaboration would look like, all the way from City Park, all the way into Wyomissing. ICGR plans.
Yeah, ICGR.
You know, I was there for all of that, and the River Place Corporation plans, the Sasaki plan, you know, I've lived through all of that. And so, you know, I think it's very important for the city to consider coming to a consensus of what they want to have happen in their downtown. So of course, your comprehensive plan is comprehensive for the city itself, but your downtown area, what do you want it to look like? How do you want it to function? What do you envision it to be? And then formally, through an ordinance, adopt that as the roadmap. Now, of course, you can change that whenever you want. So if you want to alter it, what have you, because what we found is every time we go out for grant monies, every time we talk to our representatives in Harrisburg, or our federal representatives, we can turn to that and say, this is exactly what we want to have happen. It has been adopted by the governing body. And so what we're asking for is grant money for this project here, which has the explicit endorsement of the governing body. And so we found that gets a lot of mileage out of that they really want to see not a consultant's report that says this is a good idea. They want the governing body to say, not only do we agree this is a good idea, we have formally adopted this as our official plan and roadmap. And so that way it moves from a consultant report and a suggestion to a determined effort on behalf of the elected officials to make something happen. So you can concretely point to that and say, we all agree that this is what we want to do. So again, I'm not a consultant. I don't do this for a living. I teach high school, but I've been doing this for 20 plus years as a planner in my municipality. And we found that in the last number of years has really taken shape and guided us as the borough has said, yep, this is what we want to do. It's not just a planning commission recommendation. It's not just a consultant's report to gather dust on some sort of shelf somewhere. We've had 2 decades of that now on both sides. If you look at the Sasaki plan from, I think that was 2006.
Correct.
2006. I can't believe I remember that. There you are. If you have not looked at that, I highly recommend you look at that to see the visioning that went on in that document. It will blow you away. You have not seen that because you see 2 municipalities on either side of a river coming together in what theoretically could be something extremely great for both sides. And to your point earlier, I feel as long as I've been here, we've never thought that the river was anything more than something to be accentuated as opposed to something that is some form of a barrier. We have never adopted that mindset at all, ever. So we are absolutely of the mindset that both the city of Reading, the borough of West Reading, economic success on either side of that river must go hand in hand for there to be ultimate success for both communities to move into the future. It cannot be some sort of provincial, this is ours and that's yours. At all. We never had that mindset. We are absolutely 1,000,000,000% open to collaboration and some sort of joint visioning for what the river can be. I won't name his name, but I had an architect friend a number of years ago, and it sits with me still to this day, that he said this out of frustration. I look at the city of Lancaster and their successes, and I look around the city, what's on the outskirts of the city, and I see nothing but farmland. I look at the city of Allentown and what's physically around that city, and it's pretty similar. Then I come to the city of Reading, and I see breathtaking natural beauty. I see a mountain, I see a forest of mountains, I see a river that flows right past this city. And it has such natural assets to be leveraged that is not being leveraged. And the river being one of those natural amenities we are not fully leveraging on either side, whether it's us. Now, of course, there are always going to be concerns about railroad right of ways, utility right of ways. All these things that can hamper redevelopment along, and we've got a roadway on our side of the river that PennDOT wants to expand and recalibrate the, put a divergent diamond design, on our side of the river. But the raw materials are there. The raw materials are there, and it just needs to be officially put in a document somewhere, and signatures are fixed to it. In where we can go to our representatives in Washington and Harrisburg and say, we are ready for the next phase of our community's futures. And we know what our assets are. We've enumerated them here. Now we're going to try to leverage them. And this is how we feel we want to do it. Can you find us some help, some money? The talk is talked.
And the difference is you've had more continuity of vision. We have a shift of administrations that have different points of view. Hence, Sasaki sits on the shelf. ICGR, Riverfront, thrown away. We have had one change of administration over another that is either ignored or wants their own stamp and never comes through with it. It's been very, very unfortunate what we've seen here, and I give credit to you guys that you've had more continuity of a shared vision than we have been able to have via changes in administration and not so much council to some degree, yes, but we rely on the administration to bring to us. And we've had all sorts of crazy things in the years that I've been here that one administration wants to go forward, looks good, the next one comes in, throw it away.
Right.
And hence, we have what we have.
I mean, I personally, and again, I'm gonna do this. I've personally been told by members of previous city administrations that they're not interested in talking to us.
Exactly. Yes, we've had that. We've had that. I can
We
verify
don't do it on
that.
our own. We don't need to
Yes.
see.
We're
not interested. Thank you very much.
I can verify that.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our worry, our worry, Mr. Philip, is that now that we are seeing the potential we have within the stock reading and all the efforts we have putting plans together, we are worried that West Reading is going to get tired of us because
We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
because as we speak now, this plan we're talking about, it is on its way to the council, and we believe having the council here, and if combining efforts the way we are doing, it is going to go through the adaptation process and implementation is going to start. Now, talking about other plans that have been developed, we are going through and we are combining efforts. The chairman here is not being led to rest. We are going back to look at some of those plans. They have a lot of potential. Our council chair, we are having a meeting on Monday. We want to look at some of those and we want to revive them. And trust me, we are going to be coming to you time over and over again to make sure that some of the plans that were laid down are being implemented, and some of the activities that are relevant not only to us but West Reading also are being considered, because that would be the only way we are thinking about development that is going to be collaborative. It will help us to address the issues that the communities are bringing about, but also it will enable us to stand up not only as a city, but even our neighborhood will be improved. Just wanted to add in that.
Wondering, so are you actually saying that you are going to occasionally like refer to the Sasaki plan again when you're implementing this good plan, or?
What is going to happen is that the way we have structured this at this point, we have put down the downtown comprehensive strategic plan, which is going now. Once that is adopted, we are picking other plans which I'm coordinating from my office. It could include that plan that we are referring to, and all of those are going to come to our planning commission. They will review them after the team having looked at them, and we shall see which one stands and which activities are relevant. Then we can put those at the forefront to make sure they are considered for implementation.
We've had 28 plans that we've looked at, and we pared them down to 12 very relevant plans that we need to focus on and see if we can implement. If we proceed with the comprehensive plan, if and when we proceed with the comprehensive plan, we want to make sure we carry over those ideas so we are implemented and referenced within our comprehensive plan. So those efforts weren't there, and we have identified community assessment, or we did a community assessment, which we identified specific issues. And there were 9 or 10 common points that we presented to the planning commission as well as city council. So we want to make sure that we do not lose sight of those.
The other positive thing that we now have in the city that we have not had before. Jerome was with us. He is a consultant that deals with other municipalities also. So he's not looking at just Reading. He has an ongoing wide range of knowledge about municipalities around the area. And I see that our other consultant, Shannon Colliari, is here with us, and she also has a wide range of knowledge from other municipalities that we are actually able to grab onto without having to hire anyone, because they're with us all the time. So we feel very lucky that we have this kind of support from the administration to be able to have this kind of support besides the support of our staff and the planning department.
So like if I do come up with any questions on my own, could I just go right to them?
Simon's your point guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Simon's done.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then if Simon has any questions, he'll send it over to me, because I'm the archivist. I have 20 years of documentation in my house. Because God knows, finding anything in the planning office is nearly impossible.
I probably have plenty to supplement what you have.
Any comments from anyone who is joining us on Zoom? Okay, very good. I think we'll move on to the next topic. Yep. Yeah, sure.
This to council and
Oh, the downtown strategic plan.
Yes, what we are doing is we are going to use this July to have the planning commission give us a recommendation. And I'm already talking with Linda. Our thinking was to have this plan presented to the council, like first presented, and we're thinking about after the meeting, we're talking about around the first or second week of August. And then after that, we're going now to make an agreement of when we can officially request for the council's action on that. So we are looking at the month of August to make sure that this process is completed.
If I can have one more thing, I think if we go back to your question to the West Reading Borough, you wanted their input. Was this what you were requesting initially, like their input on, like at this meeting, or will you guys like continue to have that conversation with them? Because they do have in their strategic plan, working with the city as well, so we're trying to.
Yeah. Well, specifically, one of the things in the implementation plan, there's a supposedly, the recommendation is to form a committee. Form a strategic committee. And I did send them an email about this, but the strategic committee I envision, and like this is my vision, so it's going to change. But Planning Commission, City of Reading, someone from the Planning Commission of West Reading, or a representative from West Reading, the Parking Authority, BARDA, the City Development Coordinator? What is that office called? Maritza.
City Core, the City Core manager.
Yeah. And then a few other people. I had 13 people on my list.
You know,
that I was
I'm
considering.
not into it too, because we can't underscore what's gonna happen with the West Shore bypass reconfiguration. That's not gonna be done till 2045, but it gets started within the next couple of years. And that's gonna impact both of us enormously.
So we would probably, ask.
Yeah, or co-references.
It's also the secretary for the RATS committee.
Yeah.
If you've never been to a RATS meeting, I highly recommend it.
I go to
I highly recommend it. Yeah.
So what Wayne is suggesting is when comprehensive plans are developed, they sometimes sit for a while. It's best to do a implementation team or a group on how that's going to be done. That way they can meet on a regular basis and say, how are we doing this? And that way it could be, things on the agenda that are recommended within the plan itself. So that's the way to go.
To your point, our plan, that's exactly what we do. So when we work with our consultant at Durgan Institute to adopt that plan, there's basically a checklist in there. And so we work on the lower hanging fruit first, because it was the cheapest and the easiest. And now we're in the weeds with the harder stuff. So right now we're almost a 2-year process of adopting a form-based codes, a hybrid form-based codes zoning ordinance for our downtown. And that has come with additional looks at our signage. And that has come to additional looks at how do we envision civic space for the downtown? How do we look at our parking regulations? Because parking and signage are moving targets. They always are. There are new best practices coming out. What you did 2 decades ago doesn't work anymore. And so that has, we worked with our partners at the Wyomissing Foundation to find some money to pay for that. And that was something that I wanted to do for a long time. So we're getting into the point of our roadmap where it's getting more difficult. But to Don's point earlier, you want your plan to, your planning documents, your foundational planning documents should always outlive any particular elected official. Always, because you're always going to be mixing politics, potentially mixing politics with the administering of good governance for the taxpayers of your municipality. And if your planning documents have been done in good faith, it should not matter who wins an election. You should be able to plunk that down on anybody's desk and say, this is what we're doing because we all agreed years ago prior to you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, in the best of all worlds.
Right.
But not under certain forms of government.
Right.
And it's unfortunate.
Right.
So that's one of the things that We can work on changing. I know there's even a change in the city charter of all things, which Will probably knows a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I do want to say something is it, how positive does it look as far as like long range, the mayor working with all these plans?
On a personal level, the mayor and I have known each other for about 15 years. So he kind of knows my ideas, even when he served on the school board. So we have a positive connection that we really haven't had since Tom McMahon. So there's a very positive aspect, and and politically, we need to kind of run with that. Because the administration is now on our side. We had 3 administrations that basically put the planning commission in the can and said, this is all what you can do. And it's become a mess because of those administrations doing it. So.
And that's where I suggested that the resolution be a little bit more open-minded to ideas that were created in the past and how we want to go, the vision statements in the future. There are a number of ways to get from point A to point B, but you have to have a starting point, and that's what this plan is going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at the plan itself now, like the downtown plan, I like what you said, is that the plan should outlive the time of an elected official, because this one, we are talking about it going up to 2040, which will be a good opportunity that whoever comes will definitely
And
have.
like this, whatever plan ultimately that we come up with, I mean, even if it's for, up to 2040, we can still like revise it, or do you want to make it a little bit more firm so that you have to like argue a while, to get an exception, like rare exception.
Comprehensive planning efforts should be designed for 5 to 10 year opportunities, but you should go beyond that 10-year point, just in the event that you do not adopt the plan within that next 10 years. That's why we're looking at 2040 as a designated or highlighted target point.
Yeah.
So by ordinance, I mean, it's law, so then we would have to follow it unless that law would be amended and having this established. So even if it were to go to 2040, if there was something within the next 5 or 10 years that we thought we need to change or amend it, then that possibility is out there. But by not having something implemented, administrations can change and then the vision can change. But once you have something implemented and in law, no matter what administration is in there, it won't matter because you have that.
But they also don't have to act on it. It can be like Kelly Hunter and Sasaki.
And say better ideas.
Administration directs.
Yeah, and say better ideas do come along. I mean, there's nothing wrong with amending the plan or revising the plan. Those things happen, and you may not have seen a solution to a problem before, and now all of a sudden it makes better sense.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, this is Will. I was going to say it follows along what our consultant was saying. Excuse me. The comprehensive plan is supposed to be a 5 or 10 year document, done every 5 or 10 years, because it's about setting goals. It's not as much about policy, so it transcends the period of elections for mayors and councils, and so it's not to be too detailed on policy, more about goals, and obviously incorporating the various studies that have been funded, and so that it has flexibility. And that was good advice. Of course, it can always be amended, which takes me to West Reading's plan. I wanted to comment. First of all, I appreciate that they included consultation with Reading in that. And I just wanted to say, for our purposes, as we continue to work on our plan, that there's some things to be learned from theirs. We had in our draft we use the term streetscape. And they used there was a whole technical section in their downtown plan, which would be applicable for our downtown plan in particular, which they refer to the street walls and the transect. And it's certainly something that applies, and something that I brought up, and not those terms, using those terms, but the concept of the streetscape. And it's come up before. It definitely is something for us to be mindful of for our downtown plan that we're working on and be reviewing in the meantime. I just wanted to add that. So appreciate that. And we learned also just last year, I think it was, right, with when Muhlenberg and Laureldale did their joint comprehensive plan, that as an adjacent municipality, we had to be consulted on it. So at some point, West Reading, you'll be hearing from us whenever we do approve our comprehensive plan, which I hope is sooner than later, and vice versa when you do yours as well. And so it's good that we have this foundation, which I hope will continue to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I had a quick question. Yeah, does the city have an official map?
Yes, we have many official maps. Which one do
Which
you?
one would you?
It's, our main one is the topographical map. And then, yeah, there are our numerous maps that we have reference to.
Yeah, I mean, like the planning tool that one would represent in the NPC that we call, that we typically refer to as the official map, which
That would be the
would-
topograph, the topo map.
it's
It's not the same, but it is, our topographical map is basically the street map, which shows all the streets, but we have other maps that are also referenced. I know exactly what you're talking about is.
way that your official map typically is used, and again, this is the NPC, is where do you want future roadways to go that don't currently exist? Or what connections from a transportation standpoint do you want that don't currently exist? You know, put those on there.
Yeah.
You know, and so when someone comes to you with a redevelopment plan, that could be very large. I just saw one that was announced, wasn't today. You know, and maybe to facilitate traffic, you could go to that developer and say, well, you know, you want to do this thing on this particular piece of former paint factory plan, you know, thing. But it would make it easier for traffic if the road went like this versus go like this like it currently does. So because it's on our official map, as to how we want it to look, you kind of have to do it that way because that's what the official map says. And so we found that tool to be useful as well, because I don't want to browbeat developers, but it's a full profit entity. They're looking to make it but their vision of what a good development looks like might not be what the community needs or wants. And so your tool of utilizing the official map is a really great way in how to vision, you know, transportation improvements, especially from a road standpoint, as to how older roads were configured poorly in older cities, for instance. Like, of course, we probably have some of that here. So, you know, would you rather have it this way? Would you rather have it that way? And that way, development dollars, they know what they have to follow when they see an official map. They point to it and say, it's literally one page. It says, sorry, the road has to go this way now if you redevelop this lot. So I highly recommend looking at something.
So one thing that that we've seen specifically with the Burn Street Car Wash lot and with the with Goggleworks is that we've had to have street vacations because over the decades it's been developed in a way that the street doesn't actually exist. It only exists on paper.
We've had 6 or 7 projects in the last 2 years that we had to vacate streets.
And we have one coming, we have a major one coming. The church on Montgomery.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Montgomery Avenue doesn't really exist. It has a Montgomery Avenue address.
Holy Trinity.
Yeah, that one,
street
I
doesn't
always get
even
lost with
actually
complaints over there.
Is that ever going to really happen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are there financials?
They've also have a number of permits that are gonna take a long time
Oh,
to
they
get,
got-
outside
they
of,
got
yeah.
permitting problems out the wazoo.
That project has everything.
They're still having issues getting their stuff with Burn Township too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Municipal
Yeah.
card.
Yeah. The creek, you have.
Their
Fire
easements and
you
stuff,
have-
yeah. But we do have, I think it's our topographic map that has how the streets were supposed to be. But I think what we've more seen now is that just how it's been built over the
But
decades
Phil brings up a good point. A lot of communities do an unofficial
Yeah.
map, which brings all
yeah.
those things together.
yeah.
We have Park and Recreation Plan that has its ideas. The comprehensive plan has its ideas, and then, yeah. So,
Long chapter in the MPC that talks about it. It's literally one page.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not.
the maps.
It's literally one document that you slap down with people when the developer comes in and says, well, we'd really like to see this road reconfigured around your property, and here it is on the official map adopted by the governing body. And so if you want to redevelop, you kind of have to refigure it this way, because it's on here. It's not a suggestion, it's a requirement. They have to do that.
So, just a question for Emily. You had mentioned that the topographic map says how the streets were supposed to be. Was that the basically 1700s map that sustainability was talking about, like the one that tries to have you fit 20 feet of sidewalk within like 16 feet of space or something like that?
That would be a question for Tim Kroll about that. I just know that the topographic map exists, and what it's for, I don't know timelines or anything
Oh,
like that.
okay. Yeah, that's definitely a control.
Yeah.
They are the gatekeeper of the topographical.
So here, I did want to, it is getting late, so I did want to at least, go over, item number 6 on the agenda, which is collaborative parking.
What you told me, we have 3 water leaks in the borough right now.
Yeah. Give me 10 minutes.
Okay, well, yeah, he's catastrophic failure with what's known as a water hammer, apparently went to our pump station.
Oh.
We have a whole water advisory.
Busy tonight.
Number of neighborhoods
Oh,
that just came.
yeah, let's.
Let's wrap this up and then possibly schedule another.
Yeah, we'll schedule another.
10 minutes, we can say.
Yeah, but no, this is more a thing about, an idea that I've had for years. That now with the new parking authority director, it looks like a possibility. About 8 years ago, I came up with the idea that the parking authority should use the front in Washington garage for parking in West Reading. And that BARDA should have a shuttle service that goes up Penn Avenue, goes past all your restaurants, picks everybody up, brings them over to the arena if they want to come to the arena or to the Performing Arts Center. And then, circle back and bring them back to the front Washington garage. That way, we could collaborate in having a parking garage that generally is not used, being used. And you would relieve some of your parking situation in West Reading. And like I said, this is just a crazy idea I came up with about 8 years ago. But when I mentioned it to Mr. Batista the other day, he's like, that doesn't sound as crazy. It doesn't sound that crazy. But we would need to get BARDA on board.
No, I think I had brought that up in a previous workshop when Mr. Batista was in. So when I was a planner in El Paso, Texas. They actually have it's not the streetcar, but they actually had basically like a circulator. It was on a rail that and basically it was to encourage people to, if they were closer to downtown, you go in one of their garages, you take that to then come to UTEP to the university. Or if you parked at the university and then go back and forth. And then I had the shuttle idea because Millersville University had an agreement with the city of Lancaster with their Red Rose Transportation Authority, where students with their ID had free bus service into the city and to the mall.
Yeah.
And so that type of like agreement, shuttle type of service, some type of circulator that goes around, that's something that I've seen in place in different variations. So it's not crazy, and it's something that we could definitely do.
But sort of indeterminately by somebody who had the ability to do it. That was one of the conversations, to go from literally City Park and or the Pagoda, if there were activities, all the way over to, if you know where the Works is, that whole area of Wyomissing. And the concept of Penn Corridor was to marry, with West Reading being the connector, to marry the city, West Reading, and Borough of Wyomissing. So everybody would be able to go back and forth. And it was, like you're saying, what you've experienced, it was supposed to be like a trolley, a little transit bus that would just keep going.
Just a quick loop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For me, I got excited when I saw you talking about neighborhood permit parking program. I'm like, perhaps that would be it. Yeah, perhaps.
Right now, I would say maybe a third of the borough is residential permanent parking. And we are, I mean, I think last night, I wasn't at our traffic and infrastructure committee meeting, but I do believe Walker Parking, which is really the national consultant when it comes to parking, was at that meeting, because we've talked many times on making residential permanent parking borough-wide. So, and that's the direction we'd like to go in. Now, it sounded like you have a limited residential permanent parking program here in the city. But I know when I lived in downtown Boston, you know, you had to be a resident to be able to get a parking permit in the specific neighborhood that you lived in. Now, of course, it's Boston, it's not a large city, but the parking program is in a city. Narrow streets, narrow alleyways, not built for cars, built for horses and carriages and walking. But I wonder, our biggest struggle is, how do you implement it properly? How is it going to be enforced? Do you limit the number of residential permits per house? Because ideally, what you would not want to have is one household with 10 cars in an urban environment. So do you say, all right, each household gets 2 up front, but then the third is this additional cost, the fourth is this additional cost, the fifth is this additional cost. So you make it prohibitive to have one household generating so many cars. So they have to really consider whether or not they want that fifth or sixth car. Now, that sounds like a great idea. How do you enforce it? How do you put it in place? How are the stickers given out? You know, do you need to bring on additional labor in order for enforcement purposes? But I think there's a way in how to do it right. I think there are a lot of communities that have figured these things out already. If the goal is to try to alleviate parking pressure, we think about parking pressure as, well, we need more spots. Well, we need more spots, but we need less cars. At the same time, it's a twofer. Okay, so how do you potentially encourage people to say, well, do I really need that car? Do we really need that additional car? You know, maybe not. You know, and so I would encourage the city to potentially, now it's going to be a project because your geographical footprint is larger, to look at a residential permanent parking program. Because if you put it in certain neighborhoods and it works well, everybody's going to want it. Just like our neighborhoods that have it, you've got to end it somewhere. So where it ends, the people on the other side of the block that don't have it really are upset that they won't have it. And initially it was put in place because we had employees at the hospital parking in the neighborhoods, where they had designated parking on campus, but they didn't want to walk, you know, from the garage or get the shuttle bus that the hospital was providing for them free of charge to their, you know, to their office or whatever. They'd rather park in our neighborhoods. So we had to bring that online a number of years ago. So the nearer you go to the hospital, the more you'll see the blocks with the residential permanent parking. But we think it's now time to put it borough-wide. And so I would encourage, whether it's the parking authority, maybe in collaboration with the planning commission, to look into a program that might, a trial program like he did with the stall line, which I was very encouraged to see that had been implemented. We've had it for decades. We always felt that it was very good for, very well for stall lines. So, you know, sorry, I love the line.
They're real.
I have $130. Well, there was one car parked, you know, over the line, and so my wife and I were both in West Reading, so we were like, well, parked over the line. If we park, we're gonna be blocking the driveway. So, you know, we park like we do here in Reading. You're gonna have $30 in tickets.
Reading appreciate your business.
If I could just make one quick comment before I guess we wrap up the agenda. I feel like, when we start having those conversations, we need to bring BARDA on the bus, bring BARDA on the bus. No, just, they need to be on, cause, like you said, we need more spaces, but we need less cars. So if I haven't taken BARDA bus since I was a teenager, when I would take, and to me, it was efficient. As a 16-year-old going all the way from 6th and Amity, all the way out to the Arby's in Wyomissing. I guess that's why I'm missing. I don't know my bros. Everything's writing to me. But to me, it's efficient from almost 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But you know, maybe that's not the perception now. And especially now with this whole, people are trying to be less car dependent, like actually putting an effort to do it. It's hard to do it if your bus is only running every 30 minutes, or if you know, there's no bus shelters, or you know, there's different things. So I think once we start, if we're going to start doing something like that, BARDA should be in that conversation early on to be like, hey, we're going to start restricting this parking to encourage people to have less dependence on cars. How can we make BARDA and public transportation more accessible and more efficient to push that goal along?
I don't think we can live. We all know that the public transportation situation for the county, it'd be funny if it wasn't the saddest story you've ever heard. And you know, the home of the Reading Railroad, which was in the year 1900 the largest company in the world, not the United States, the world, and that's why it's on the monopoly board.
Yep.
And hasn't had passenger train service since 1981. If that's not the saddest thing you've ever heard of, a city of nearly 100,000 people, a county of 432,000 people with no rail service. That is literally a sin. You know, and now I know we all know that there is a little bit of, you know, push behind getting rail service back here to the city, to the region. But I mean, we found out real quick when Beaver went out of business, how fragile the intercity bus service is, or how important it is. And then when they went away, it was like, how many people live in the city that need intercity bus service to get to Philadelphia, to get to New York City, to get to other cities? We don't have that. That is crazy. And so we have a city where people have to depend on cars. They have to depend on cars, which is, it blows my mind that we as a county find ourselves in this situation where the greater metropolitan area, was it 1 in 4 people in Berks County live in Reading? There's 425,000 people live in the county, 100,000 live in City Reading. 1 in 4 people live in City Reading. They have no intercity bus service. They've got no rail service. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, we're definitely well.
Population.
Yeah,
Clear.
you gotta beg the Fed to give you $100,000 to study.
We had bus, we didn't have You could go and. Really good spot, it's still in Europe.
I know it's well beyond the scope of this meeting.
There's all sorts of factors involved.
Very frustrating.
Well, I do, see that we have been here for 2 hours. I would like to defer the rest of this agenda to a future meeting where we can continue to collaborate with our partners in West Reading. We will set up a meeting because it turns out Tuesdays is not very good for them.
Water lakes aren't very good for them.
Yeah. I know I'm bringing this meeting kind of to an abrupt end, but,
We can continue the rest of our agenda stuff at our workshop session.
yeah, we can continue some of this other discussion, our workshop session on Tuesday.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, Tuesday of next week. And, I want to thank everyone for participating and staying with us and listening. And participating. I think that we have made, I think we've actually made, we now have facts that we can act on some of these, topics.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask everybody to come on Tuesday with their calendars so we can discuss the joint meeting with City Council regarding the zoning ordinance amendments.
Number 11 on the
Yes.
Oh, okay. Very good. So we can definitely talk about number 11. And actually developing the letter to City Council explaining why Mr. Hunter is a little doesn't quite understand what we're trying to get at. So, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Nelson. Second? Second? Yeah, nobody wants to leave.
I tried to. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Question on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Very good. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
I will send to Emily.